So what's your response to the Prime Minister's claim that the bill is reasonably required in a democratic society and is within the four corners of the Constitution?
Not true. Again, what he did, he went through the constitutional provision, section 10, freedom of expression, and he seeks to present this bill and its provisions as being within the restrictions or the things that the Constitution says, by claiming that this law represents a reasonably justified restriction of freedom of expression in a democratic society. What he did not do is that he did not go through the test. In law, there is a test. It has 3 levels, where in judging a law to determine if it represents a reasonably justifiable restriction to a freedom such as freedom of expression, the law itself must have certain characteristics. I'm reading to you from a document that was done by Article 19 Global Campaign for Freedom of Expression. They did a review of Kenya's Cybercrime Bill when it came out, and they basically struck down a lot of things in that bill as being unconstitutional. Now, Article 19 Global Campaign comes from out of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Human Rights, which St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a state party to since 1981. And here is what the Article 19 people had to say about the test that the law must fulfill in order to be reasonably justifiable in a democratic society. It says here, 1, it must be prescribed by law. Okay, so we have a law. But how must that law be in order for it to represent a reasonable restriction on freedom of speech in a democratic society? It says here, this means that a norm must be formulated with sufficient precision to enable an individual to regulate his or her conduct accordingly. Ambiguous, vague, or overly broad restrictions on freedom of expression are therefore impermissible. The question Vincentians has to ask themselves, in this bill, are the provisions vague? Are they ambiguous? This rule shows that in order for the law to represent a reasonable restriction on your freedom of expression, the law itself must not be vague and ambiguous. It must be so clear that the common man could regulate his behavior. When you read the bill and it says if you publish communication which causes the person to feel distress, the person is asking out there, what does that mean? People could feel distress for every little thing. How will I know which thing not to publish and which thing to publish? It doesn't allow the common man to regulate his behavior, and therefore it is vague, ambiguous, and according to the international law, it is impermissible. The second test that the law must pass to be reasonably justified in a democratic society, we are told it must pursue a legitimate aim. Now, the Prime Minister referred to our Constitution where it says you could limit your freedom of expression in the interest of protection of national security, public order, public health or morals, and also to protect other people's rights. Again, the question is, how does speaking the truth in a Facebook post that somebody might feel humiliated about or feel distressed about, whatever that means, how is restricting my truth speaking, how is that necessary to protect public order? The truth being spoken could never be restricted to protect public order, because public order needs the truth to be spoken. So it fails that test as well. And the third thing is that where you say you are pursuing a legitimate aim, like the Prime Minister says he has to do it for peace and security, it says here it should be necessary to secure the legitimate aim and meet the test of proportionality. What does that mean? It says the party invoking the restriction, which is government, must show a direct and immediate connection between the expression and the protected interest. Proportionality requires that a restriction on expression is not overbroad and that it is appropriate to achieve its protective function. Okay, so what? You're restricting freedom of expression by this bill's provisions, but is it proportionate? Do you need to send a man to jail for his words? Is he a murderer? Is he a rapist? Did he steal money from anybody? Did he create assaulted bodily harm. No, he spoke words. He even spoke the truth. So you cannot tell me it is proportionate to give a criminal record, a criminal sentence, a criminal imprisonment to a person who may have simply spoken the truth just because somebody has felt distress and brought some sort of evidence to say it did them harm to the health. That is disproportionate. I say this bill, with some of its provisions, fails to meet the test of the kind of law that is reasonably justified in a democratic society in limiting freedom of expression. The Prime Minister is a lawyer for 30-something years. He's supposed to know about that 3-level test, and he didn't go that far to tell us that in Parliament this morning. He only stopped short to say he believes it is reasonably justified in a democratic society. That is not honest in a presentation.